teens in one at a time. It loves to feed, it loves my past. It's always taunting, but somehow out of grasp. Can you hear me? 'Cause I'm lost, and I may never come back again. And while my heart keeps holding on, I know I'll never be the same again. It talks to me, it holds my hand, it showers me with things I can't understand. It has no reason, it knows no time, it's constantly watching, so it's not left behind. Can you hear me? 'Cause I'm lost, and I may never come back again. And while my heart keeps holding on, I know I'll never be the same again. Can you hear me? 'Cause I'm lost, and I may never come back again. And while my heart keeps holding on, I know I'll never be the same again. You 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 know I'll never be the same again. Can you hear me? 'Cause I'm lost, and I may never come back again. And while my heart keeps holding on, I know I'll never be the same again. 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 I know I'll never be the same again.
What up, everyone? DJ Nubis here with you on the Meltdown Radio Podcast. New episode of Global Unscripted, where I sit down and I talk about social issues, politics, pop culture, internet drama, so on and so on. Today is no different. Obviously, I have a couple of topics, a couple of videos we're going to kind of sit and watch a little bit and discuss. The first one's got something to do with the gaming world, where the gaming awards and the nominations were announced recently, and of course there's people in an uproar about it for one reason or another. But Kotaku, who has been sort of fighting against the gamers for a while now, and at one point was led by one Alyssa Marcante, who no longer is there, but now she's with Rolling Stone magazine. But she was a piece of work and one of the editors that was constantly attacking gamers over DEI and woke bullshit. But in this case, Kotaku, again, is still kind of feeding into that, where gaming journalists are basically pushing against, the nominations and saying that the particular game in question, Dragon Age Veilguard, isn't included in the nominations because it happened so late in the year. And he feels like, I guess the article is written by Kenneth Shepard, who believes that, the award should wait till the beginning of the following year, which I don't think, I'm pretty sure the Oscars and all them happen around December and November. So I don't think he tries to paint it as like, oh, they always happen at the beginning of the year, but they really don't. That's not really accurate. Now, I don't know exactly when in the year it happens. I think it's more in December, but even though this is just November where these got nominated, it doesn't necessarily mean that Dragon Age deserved to be there. And of course, one of his famous lines in his article here is, pushing aside the bad faith, transphobic, and racist nonsense that's been surrounding the games for months. He says games, but it's game if he's talking about Veilguard. There's a discussion to be had there. It is without a doubt one of the more divisive games in BioWare's catalog. But anyone who thinks its timing didn't play a factor in its complete absence is kidding themselves. No, it's really not. We're going to get into a video by Kilted Cajun here in a minute, but the reality is that Dragon Age wasn't doing that well anyway. It did okay at the beginning, but it's been losing player counts since then. And there's still been a lot of like talk about the poor dialogue and voice acting that's going on within the game. So game is shot beautifully, plays very well, but it has a lot of other problems, and it's all attached to that DEI stuff because the dialogue is like, as if I said this before, it's as if it was written by a 12-year-old. So it's not even like good dialogue. It's not interesting. It's childlike. It's like, dude, what the fuck are you doing here? This is so nonsensical. It doesn't even fit within this fantasy world that we're in right now. So, and then it just like even some of the inappropriateness of the characters is pretty off base too. But it's for another discussion. But anyway, Celtic Cajun did a video here where he talks about, I don't know if he's talking about Kenneth himself here or not, but we're going to go through his video. It's not super long. Neither video is like super long. I didn't want to make him too long, but let's see what he has to say about what's going on with the Kotaku outrage about Dragon Veil not being there, or Dragon Age.
Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt your regularly scheduled programming to bring you this special bulletin. The Game Award nominations are out. The Veil Guard got nominated for entirely too many awards. Kotaku is big mad, and we're going to point and laugh at him because, well, that's the only use that Kotaku has now. Over here, a little article from Kenneth Shepard. The Game Awards should happen after the year is over, like every other award show. Now, one could agree with that, except for the little nifty fact that it's not a January to November. It's a November to November. Eligibility for the 2024 Video Game Awards.
And see, I didn't even know that. But again, even the Oscars, I don't think take place in January, from what I recall. In fact, let me look it up real quick. Oh, maybe they are. I'm wrong. I have to correct myself. Apparently, they happen in February or March early in the year. But see, I don't ever recall that. I always remember it happening later. Maybe it's just the nominations that happen later in the year. I don't know. So I'm wrong on that. But I will say this, even with all that said, even if I would agree that, okay, let's wait till the end of the year to have these award shows, even for gaming, like it doesn't necessarily mean that Dragon Age was even going to make it, because you have to really present an argument that the game itself deserved to be in there. Like the fact that it's divisive doesn't mean that it deserves a nomination. You can argue it might be better than some of the other ones. That's just like a personal opinion and how you play the game or whatever. But it's like clockwork when you watch editors like this and article writers come out and say, well, this game should have been there. Like it's surprising he didn't say Concord and Dustborn should have been there too. Like, it's funny he didn't bother to mention those, even though Kotaku is a big DEI supporters shit mag that wants to like hate gamers because they don't want to be force fed this stupid shit, like this stupid dialogue from Dragon Age. It's not our fault that the developers wrote it that poorly and had that shit in there. Like, that's not our fault. So call it transphobic, call it whatever you want. It makes you look like a fool. Doesn't matter. Let's continue.
Awards hosted by the one, the only Jeff Keighley, runs from November 18th, 2023 through November 22nd, 2024. So that's a little more than a year, a couple days more than a year, but still, it is a single calendar year, 12 months. So what's the problem, Kenneth? Well, we all know what the problem is.
What's the frequency, Kenneth?
Media darling Dragon Age, the Veil Guard, just didn't get nominated for enough. It got one single award, which personally I think is entirely too many. Eligibility timing of Jeff Keighley's award show cuts games like Dragon Age, the Veil Guard off at the knees, except that it doesn't. Because if that were the case, well, it wouldn't have gotten nominated for a single award, and yet it did. Again, my opinion, it got nominated for more than awards than it deserved. But how do you get cut off at the knees when it's a 12-month window of opportunity for video games? Let's see what.
See, that does change the dynamic a lot because, like, even I didn't know that it was November to November. So, how it is that Kenneth, who is supposed to be in tune with the gaming industry as a supposed gaming journalist, doesn't understand that, tells me he's not paying attention or doing the research necessary to know these rules. Like, because now he's just saying, well, from January to, November is too short a time, but they've had a year. So, but here's the thing, though. Here's the other thing about Kenneth's complaint, right? If it's November to November, that doesn't mean Dragon Age won't be nominated next year, even though it'll be 2025. So why does it have to worry about it right now? If it runs 12 months from November to November, then that just means that maybe Dragon Age will get nominated for things next November. So, like, your complaint right now is kind of ridiculous. If that's the format that's currently working in progress, then it doesn't really tell you that Dragon Age won't get. It's one thing if by November 2025, Dragon Age doesn't get nominated at all, then you might have a legitimate complaint if you feel like the game deserves it. But if right now you're just like, oh, it should have been in 2024, well, then you kind of sound stupid because that's not the way that it's currently set up.
Good old Kenneth has to say about this because, well, I'm sure you can guess what he's going to say at the end. Because of course he is. In case you missed it, don't worry, we didn't. We've been making fun of it for the past week. The nominees for the 10th Annual Game Awards set to air December 12th, and we shall be tuning in to point and laugh at the nonsense. Has been announced some frontrunners were predictably nominated for multiple categories, such as Astrobot and Metaphor Refantasio, which got 6 and 7, or 7 and 6 nominations, respectively. Except you don't want to talk about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which also got 7. Oh, well, heaven forbid you.
Yeah, and see, that's the other thing, too, is like, whenever you're talking about awards in general, it doesn't matter if it's movies, music, games, whatever. Like, there was a lot of great games this year. In fact, I'm a little surprised that Black Myth Wukong didn't get nominated for more. They got a couple of nominations, and so did Stellar Blade, but nothing on the level of, like, Final Fantasy, like, was in there. Metaphors was in there a lot. What is it? Autobot or whatever it was they mentioned. So there was a lot of games that people felt were way better than Dragon Age. So I don't know. This just sounds like pandering by Kenneth to try to, like, force Dragon Age into this particular nomination set of awards rather than, again, it's almost the minute that Kilted told him that it's November to November, it just destroys this article in its entirety because it just tells you that we don't even know if Dragon Age is going to be nominated in 2025, which, based upon what the current setup is, it's a good possibility that Dragon Age will appear later next year in the nominations.
Talk about Black Myth Wukong or Elden Ring DLC, because that's a bit of a controversy right now, right? The controversy behind the DLC getting nominated, and what was it? The unfounded allegations, or not maybe unfounded, but overblown allegations of sexism in the workplace, published by none other than IGN and pushed over and over, going against Black Myth Wukong, but whatever. They got 4 nominations, so I guess I can understand. It's not 7 or 6. There were some pleasant surprises, too. Indie darling Balatro, I have my opinions on that. That just don't even worry about it. Also being nominated for the show's top award, Balatro, for Game of the Year. Anyway, no, I'm not going to go into that. Let's go. But after all these years, the timing of the award show confounds me. After 10 years of Jeff Keighley doing it the same way every year, November to November, 12 months, confounds you? It unintentionally sabotages games that are eligible for nominations.
It's funny that they mention this. So, like, okay, so Oscars, as we just found out, happens in February, March of next year. So it's going to affect, of course, everything in 2024. Fine. In a few weeks, like towards the end of December, is when I'll be sitting down with Neko to give my top favorite albums, rock and metal albums of 2024. I wait till the last possible minute to do that show every year. but I don't wait till January to do it. I mean, it's happened like once, I think, because just time and everything. But I generally try to get it done before the end of the year. And the same thing happens when I do my top 10 movies of the year, which I still don't have 10 right now. So it may never get to 10. I might have to throw in some runner up type things that are close, but not quite there. But the reality is, like, I always do it around the second or third week of December for those shows because, and that, you know, you could have a movie that either one I haven't seen and I need to see, it might be really good, or two, it comes out like an album might come out like December 31st and be like a really, really great record that would have made my list. Sometimes I had to add them in to my list after the fact, which I've had to do before. But the reality is I still do them as towards the end of the year instead of like into the new year. I don't like doing it that way because I'm already focused on listening and reviewing or checking out new records for 2025. I get started right away. I don't really touch anything in 2024 once the year is done. Unless it's on my personal time and someone just says, hey, you should have really checked this out. But, you know, other than that, I'm all focused on 2025 releases. So yeah, so in this case, the same thing is like, you know, they have a setup in a certain way and they want to run this on December 12th for their award show. Well, that's because they're trying to get it done before the year's up. But that does leave that small gap of a month or so where a game could get released that's really good and just doesn't make that particular list. But again, if it's November to November and if it overlaps a year, well, then there's nothing to say that Dragon Age won't get any nods or nominations next November. Like, it just makes no sense that Kenneth is not understanding how this works.
How so? And of course, he's talking about Dragon Age the Veilguard because, well, I'm sorry, that was a trash game. Boring. Action was mediocre at best. It was linear, almost 100% linear. But why does he think there's a problem? For context, any game that is publicly available by November 22nd, a date that was still several days away from the time nominations were announced, well, because they have to set a date. I'm sorry. Jeff Keighley has apparently stuck to it year after year after year. Late November, third quarter November, every single year, just about for the past 10 years. And now, all of a sudden, because your sweet, darling Veilguard game didn't get nominated for enough. I wonder why you think that is. According to staffers at jury outlets, Kotaku, the jury outlets. The jury, At Kotaku has spoken to, the ballots were due on November 12th. While each outlet has its own internal process for how it handles submitting nominations, some at Kotaku spoke to explained they had to have votes in on an even earlier date. Now, if that is the case, instead of, the 22nd, why would you force people to put their ballots in 10 days prior? That's interesting. Why would you do that? Now, if that is the case, again, I will question that, but otherwise, no. The result is several overlapping deadlines that affect which games actually have a reasonable chance of being nominated for the Game Awards. Games like The Veilguard, which was garbage, which can take up to 60 hours to complete and launch less than 2 weeks. Well, as a video game outlet, where all you do is talk about video games and play video games and review video games, I think 10 days should be enough to have a good idea what you think about the game. Maybe not necessarily the ending, but if you have a couple of people spending their day doing their job, the single solitary soul thing that you do, play video games, play it. 2 weeks, plenty of time. Is affected more by timing than any other factor. I don't think so. I do believe the public outcry on how terrible the game was, how boring the game was.
Yeah, he makes a really, really great point here because Kenneth is going to go into the next couple of sentences where he says that, well, he's trying to allude to the fact that the awards are more about how popular a game is to the mainstream rather than how good it is, or if it's an independent developer or whatever. But the reality is it's not really quite true, at least in the gaming. Like, you might say that about the Oscars and movies and stuff like that. the Golden Globes and all that. But with games, like, because we're in like a subset of the industry where basically YouTube, Twitch, X, it's really concentrated in there. And so, and my point being is that when Dragon Age got released, dude, people were talking about it a lot, a lot. And it's not just about the dialogue and the bad shit that happened. They were just talking about because they were excited because past Dragon Age games apparently are really, really fun and really, really good. Uh, it's like anything else. Black Myth, which I had no idea about prior to its release. I have yet to play it, want to play it, but uh, people were talking about it a lot. And part of this whole thing about the attention that a game gets. So again, Kenneth is kind of short-sighted here. He'll use this excuse that there's all this transphobia and sexism or racism towards a game like Dragon Age, but will fail to mention that controversy brings it to the forefront. Anyone who didn't even know about Dragon Age now knew about it because of all the chaos and controversy that game creates. Now, the same thing happened with Stellar Blade. People like Kenneth were bitching and moaning about, I won't say him particularly, but people like him were bitching and moaning that the character of Eve is too sexy and that all gamers want to do is just sexualize her, right? So rather than if that character of Eve had been trans or gay or anything, he wouldn't have been complaining, or anyone else like him would have been complaining. But so when they complained about her being too sexy and she was fake and not real, even though she's based off a real life model, which that blew up in their face real quickly. The fact that they were doing that brought more attention to a game that they really didn't want. This is the thing that happened with Hogwarts Legacy, man. Like all the trans and the white knighters that were so angry at J.K. Rowling being involved in that project in terms of name, were like trying to like harass, bully, and give death threats to streamers that were playing the game. All that did was force people to go out and play the fucking game, including myself. In fact, I saw people literally get up there during that time and say, "Oh, you know what? I had no intentions of playing this, but because you guys are threatening and bullying all these streamers for even trying the game out, I'm gonna go buy 5 copies." It became one of the best-selling games of that year. So I think I played Hogwarts for like a month and then I stopped. I just kind of got bored with it. So really, technically, I'm not getting much money out of it now. Like I don't play it much anymore. And I know they've added some content, but like I just don't care. But at that time, because of my anger towards the way that those communities were treating streamers, were just who had no fight in it at all. They didn't have any dog in the fight. They just wanted to play a game about Harry Potter. Yet for some reason, those fucking idiots on the other side, that the far left, they just couldn't handle it, and so they started trying to be aggressive and threatening people. So it works not in your favor when you try to do shit like that. So then Black Myth Wukong, same thing, which again, it blew up in their face because they're like, well, there's no like diversity in this, even though if you play the game further along, it does have diversity, it does have women in it. And of course, the left and the journalists who claimed that it was sexist and everything else were entirely wrong. So they got fucked again in the ass. But again, here's my point is that there's a lot of tension around Dragon Age, good and bad. So the idea that even though it just came out pretty recently and didn't get nominated, doesn't mean that it didn't have attention. It got plenty of attention, even if some of it was negative. That's the reality of the situation with that particular game.
Was how absolutely abysmal the writing, especially Tosh, was on this game. I think that had more of a factor than any.
I'll even add that the games that I saw like nominated the other day, Ballatra or Autobot or Metaphor, I had never heard of any of those games, none of them, until they mentioned for nominees. So that shows you just like, if you want to complain about Dragon Age and it not getting nominated, like there's games I'd never heard of. So I think in a lot of ways, Dragon Age had a leg up in terms of notoriety and like, concept in terms of people talking about it as opposed to Metaphor or some of these other games. Like if Metaphor got nominated for a lot of shit, so why weren't people talking about it? I didn't see anybody really talking about it. It's crazy, right? Like, and supposedly it's a really good game.
Anything, regardless of what day you launched it. They could have launched it November 30th of 2023, and it still wouldn't have deserved a single nomination because the game is just crap. Voters didn't have much time to play it. Voters. Ah, the voters. Which one? The video game players, the actual gamers, the ones who put their hard-earned money up to purchase half the slop that you put out there from the mainstream industry that only account for 10% of the voting power? Or is it the usual suspects, the ones who get their NPC firmware updates and spew the same nonsensical lines over and over again, and of course regurgitate and reference the same articles that the usual suspects put out, which accounts for 90% of the voting power? Is this a game awards for the players, or is it a game awards to just an industry circle jerk? Pat yourselves on the back, tell each other that your sparts just smell like roses. I wonder who it's for. Let's see. Voters didn't have much time to play it. Yes, they
I should correct myself. It's not Autobot, it's Astrobot. I keep calling it Autobot.
did. They had plenty of time, as they did similarly epic games like Elden Ring Shadows of the Erdtree, which I don't think should have been up for nomination for Game of the Year, but that is what it is. It's my opinion. Don't come at me. Which launched much earlier. If you need another game in order to play it, I don't think... Anyway, moving on. Nor does it benefit from brevity the way some games do, like Astrobot. We're just going to go off and attack all these other games, which are fantastic in and of themselves, regardless of whether you think they should be nominated for whatever category. But, oh no, the Veilguard, you didn't have enough time. Again, I don't think that was why it wasn't nominated. I do have ideas on why it wasn't nominated. I think it has more to do with the public outcry against these games and the idea that it was, as the paying customer, the viewer, the gamer, the people that you're supposed to be catering.
Yeah, it's funny because, and I hate to draw a correlation to Hollywood again, but so we talked about the dialogue with Dragon Age and how it's written like it was written by like a 12-year-old. That's how it's written. It's just so stupid. Now games are for kids, but in this age, like there are a lot more older adult, like I played Diablo 4 and Mortal Kombat, and you do have more older people playing games. And Dragon Age in the past, from what I understand, their plots and their storylines are very mature and not as goofy, or at least not as forced as we got in the Veilguard, and like in terms of like sexuality and stuff like that, because apparently it does somewhat exist in past iterations of the game, but the franchise. But this game, it just kind of like came to the forefront, which we've always talked about with DEI, is that DEI by itself is never a bad thing. It's always a good thing. But if you're forcing it and you're making it the priorities, you're basically just checking boxes instead of like naturally working and woven it into your storyline in a way that makes sense. Then it puts people off because it's more like, oh, I'm going to preach to you that this is good and this is why you should like this, rather than like, oh, okay, that's cool. That character has like a unique perspective on life, and their relationship is a bit odd with their parents, but we got all this other shit going on, like fighting dragons and shit. So that's kind of a cool storyline, but not the forefront of what we worry about. But in this game, apparently the dialogue is so bad that it turns gamers off. Like they really struggle to get through because they have to skip it to get to the good parts. And you don't want that as a gamer. You want to be able to be immersed in a story to the point that you are taken off to this fantasy land. And again, I've talked about this with the fucking the Acolyte and stuff like that, where you're making these things for the small subset of gamers. And so and it's just like the Star Wars, you got these small subset of Star Wars fans that are gay or trans or whatever, and you're trying to appease them, but the majority, the majority of a fan base doesn't care about that. They don't care about whether or not they're trans. They don't care that they're, gay or whatever. It's just they want good stories. They want action. They want fun. They want to be, a sense of escapism away from the real world stuff, basically, and at least stuff that's right in our face all the time. So with gaming, it's the same thing. If I go to play a game, I don't want someone lecturing me about whether or not they're being misgendered or some stupid ass shit like that. Like it to me, I don't give a fuck about that. I don't care about your gender, don't care about your pronouns, don't care about anything. I just want to have fun. I don't care about that shit. So if the developers and the studios are making these games and they think that that should be the priority, well, that's your own fault because you're catering to the small minority. And I don't care if you think that's supposed to be fair, because on one hand, journalists say, well, there's plenty of games you could play something else. And then yet when all the majority of gamers do that, these same journalists get upset with him and say, well, why didn't you just give it a chance? It's a great game. No, we told you why we don't like it. You told us to fuck off, and we did. We went and did something else. If the case here is about the nominations is that Dragon Age failed because of that particular part of the game is sucky, that's the voters telling you, Kenneth, to fuck off and go play your game and sit there and like it, because they don't care about your game, clearly. But that's not even that's not even totally true either, because again, like I said, if it's November to November, Dragon Age may show up in November 2025 with some nominations, since that's the way it runs. Either way, even if it doesn't, it's still going to tell you to fuck off. They're just giving you the big middle finger to and saying, get fucked. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't go and make a game or a piece of entertainment for the small minority and then expect everyone else to like it and eat it and accept it. Fuck off. If you want to be inclusive to everybody and write a good story and make it make sense. Don't fucking sit there and waste our time with stupid shit. That's not the big deal. It should not be the forefront of fucking stories. It should not be at all. It's dumb. That's kiddie stuff. Like, fuck off, dude. Like, grow a backbone, write a better story. If you want to include that kind of stuff, make sure it makes sense and make sure it's not like trying to preach to people. Make it fluid. Make it fluid throughout the story where it makes sense and it's not going to like overtake what other parts of the fantasy that people are supposed to be immersed in. It's not that hard. Get better writers. If you're struggling with it, get better writers, because clearly companies like SBI, who are supposed to be consulting on shit like this, aren't doing their job. I don't know if they worked on this game, but companies like them, if this is what they're doing, they're fucking it up. And why it is your studios out there continue to use these assholes when they're fucking up your games, I don't know what to tell you, man. You're losing money. If you want to waste money, waste your money. It's not my money. You just waste your money. But we see this with the movies and stuff too. It's like, if you want to be inclusive, let's be inclusive. But stop telling white people they suck. Stop saying that we don't need white people in these games. Stop telling people that we don't need sexy characters. Even more so, let's revert back to Concord, okay? And I've said this before. Why is it that whenever you're trying to portray someone of an alternative lifestyle, whether it's being gay or trans, why do you make them look as ugly as possible? Like, what is I don't get that. Like, I can't understand like why any trans person would sit there and say, this is supposed to represent me. This is not how I feel. I feel like I'm a beautiful butterfly. Because in the end, trans people that are trying to transform into somebody else, into another sex, they want to look the best they possibly can. But when you're given like a trans person who's transformed from a man to a woman, male features, and they look mugly, as we call it, that's not doing them any favors. You're making them look worse. Why make their characters ugly? It doesn't make any fucking sense. So I don't know. It's beyond me, like the thinking behind all that shit. It just it drives me bonkers that anybody that's of the trans community or gay community that thinks that that's the best way to represent your side of things. I don't understand. Like, I don't. When I see myself in a game, if I want to see myself, I'm not going to do a character that looks like me. Okay. I'm not saying I look totally horrible, but I don't look like Chris Hemsworth either. So when I play a game, whether it's Diablo 4 or some other game where I can have a character creation, I'm going to look jacked. And the funny thing is, most of the time, I play female characters and I want them to look sexy as hell while being badasses. I don't want a mugly character. What is the fucking point? I want to be aesthetically pleasing just as much as I want them to kick ass on screen. So Stellar Blade Eve, I want her to look hot because I know she's going to kick ass. That's just how it is. That's how most gamers are. And then if you got whiny little gamers over here that don't like sexiness, well, that's their problem, dude. Let them go play some other games that, have that. And if you make those games with these mugly characters like Concord or whatever, well, that's fine. But if you don't sell, it's not our fault. We don't want to play that game unless you make it to where you can create any character you want. And I don't understand that either. Like, even in the games where these characters' creations are there, half the time you're not allowing people to make sexy characters. You want them to be only just certain things. That's the only problem with Diablo 4 is that you can't really adjust your characters' bodies or anything that much. I would like to have that option. I mean, it has a pretty diverse character thing creation, but right now it's not as diverse as I would like it. But either way, if you're going to do that and you complain about being inclusive to trans and gays and everything else and pronouns or whatever the fuck, at least make it to where if I want to go in and make the hottest fucking chick on the planet, I want to do that. Or the hottest guy on the planet, I want to do that. I shouldn't be relegated to just one thing or one type of aspect of that culture. Like, even if I wanted to make a trans character, if I did, I'd still try to make that character as hot and good looking as possible. That's the whole point. Again, the fantasy, folks, the fantasy. There's no fantasy in which I believe that you want to look as ugly as shit. There's no fantasy in that.
Catering your video games to the major demographic that these games are supposed to be for. We firmly believe that, or believed, past tense, that Dragon Age the Veilguard was absolutely going to get nominated for Game of the Year simply based on the discussion from the usual suspects around it. And lo and behold, come to our surprise, massive shock and surprise that it only got one nomination. I promise you, I was definitely surprised. Caught me out of nowhere, especially since Black Myth Wukong got nominated, considering the so-called controversy behind it. Let's see, lack of meaningful gap between the eligibility cutoff and when the ballots are due is especially damaging to games that technically fall within the window but are only available to a select few jurors. Do you think that the people, again, powers that be, the usual suspects, that are on the jury board for the Game Awards, do you think they didn't have access to early copies of this game? I have my doubts. Only for a brief time before their votes must be cast. Article goes on, yes, Stalker 2, unfortunately, that fell behind in the launch window.
I'm going to move up a little bit.
To the show feeling like an ad for games rather than a celebration of them. Because, no kidding, because they're selling something. Veilguard didn't get nominated, so you think that the award show, recognition, it deserves recognition. It's just not for the categories that you like. Pushing aside the bad faith, here we go. My favorite part of all these kinds of articles because they push the nonsense.
Yeah.
Pushing aside the bad faith, transphobic, and racist nonsense. What racist nonsense? In a video game that doesn't have... What are you talking about? Bad faith, transphobic nonsense. No. The game was poorly written. It is practically on rails, linear, about 75%, 85% of the time, with very little options for exploration, even in the larger zones. The cities go from point A to point B. A couple of the cities I will compliment that had multiple ways to get around, but again, it was still quite linear, for my opinion. The dialogue was terrible. The voice acting was terrible. So, bad faith transphobic, I didn't see much of that. Outside of making fun of the character creator. That's not transphobia. That's not racism. That's making a joke. Something that we desperately need to bring back across the entertainment industry. And just stop with the protected classes nonsense. Surrounding the nth months. There's a discussion to be had here. We tried to have the discussion. You didn't want it. You called us istophobes over and over again. We sat there and told you having options, having more options like the top surgery scars was silly in a world that was filled with magic, and you called us transphobes. Yep. We asked, why did you take away the options to have rather larger chesticles and gluteus maximuses, making more options? The developer decided to take those options away, and of course you called us gooners for it. And then when the game came out, we made fun of Tasha's dialogue because it did not make sense in the world that was presented for us. And again, we were called phobes over and over again. So please forgive me, Kotaku and the usual suspects, all the like you. We couldn't care less anymore what your opinion is or what your opinion of us is. We're going to use your sites to point and laugh about the nonsense. Dragon Age the Veilguard got way more nominations than it deserved, and it had nothing to do with when it was released. So let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Kenneth, I'm sorry you're hurt. Your feelings were hurt. But as long as Jeff Keighley keeps his structure the same year after year after year, no one is going to have a problem with it, except for you when your feelings are hurt. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Leave a dislike, and do all those nifty little.
And so there you have it. Yeah. So certainly a very interesting thing where even after, like, you know, all the nominations and stuff, like in Kotaku with Alyssa Mercante, you know, having to leave, either whether she was forced out or left on her own, to go and basically, you know, get another job, because I don't know if they were losing money, which I think Kotaku has been losing money, or at least losing viewership on their site and their traffic, because of all the controversy even on their end versus the gamers. Again, there's this war going on between supposed gaming journalists and, of course, gamers and stuff over all this shit. Like, you know, it's war words. It's a lot of misconceptions. There's a lot of generalizations by journalists, and some vice versa. Sometimes when journalists are trying to be in good faith, but get thrown in with the shit like the Kenneths and the Alyssa Mercantes and people like that, where, you know, or if you have at times, like, one thing that kind of getting on my nerves recently is like Geeks and Gamers or side scrollers, you know, or Smash JT. Like, I like these people in a sense because they do bring information that's important, but at the same time, I get annoyed a little bit just with the fact that they kind of grift off this shit. So, like, it's like a constant thing with them. So for me, sure, I have a couple topics here today that are interesting that I felt like I wanted to talk about, but you're not going to hear me chatting about this stuff like 24/7 or every day. Like, I can't do that. Even if I was getting monetized, like, I couldn't do it. Like, people often say, well, your channel needs to be one specific thing, but I don't like doing that. I like different things, and whether it's part of my ADHD or just, in fact, I had so many general different interests. The reality is I like talking about different things, entertainment wise and music and so on. And I don't want to be stuck just talking about one particular thing, or like drama in general is just, it's draining, man. Like, I wanted to talk some stuff about the whole, like, The View and some of their reactions and the mainstream media's meltdown about the Trump win and everything, but it's just so draining, dude. I can't do that, like, you know, nonstop. I can laugh at it a little bit, but it's not something I want to spend a lot of time on. But this, you know, I felt like should be talked a little bit about, because again, Kilted really nailed it when he said that the timeline for how this works is from November to November. So that's a huge deal in terms of like presentation. So Kenneth isn't even being straightforward in his criticism because he doesn't understand how it works. And he hasn't even really contemplated whether or not Dragon Age will show up next year for a bunch of awards. We don't know. Now, chances are it probably won't. Even if people play it, like they're going to sit there and say that the same issues are there. Because again, it comes down to the majority of gamers. Majority of gamers, some people will say, well, it's not a big deal and I just play the game and enjoy it. Well, that's fine. That's great. That's the whole thing about games in general and entertainment. You are free to choose what you want to consume or play. But you're also free to criticize what you think is a failure or fault of a game or piece of entertainment. And that's the thing. Like, but in some cases, which I would point to Geeks and Gamers and all them, is that look, you know what these game journalists are going to say, so why worry about what they're saying anymore? Like you're kind of feeding the trolls at this point, and there's no longer a need to do that. So before I get into my next subject matter, I'm going to take a little break, but I'll be back. I'm going to just do a little bit of old school movie time intermission, and I'll be right back.
And now meet the star of our show. Symbol of a treat that quality made famous. America's most famous ice cream treat. Eskimo pie. Creamy, delicious ice cream made even more exciting with smooth, rich chocolate coating. And wearing the label of quality, known the world over. Eskimo pie, the treat you know is tops because it carries its pledge of quality right on the back of the bag. Be sure you save the bags for valuable premiums. Get famous Eskimo pie at our refreshment stand now. It's America's anytime taste treat. Finest ice cream, finest chocolate. It's delicious.
Hey! They're ready, folks.
For refreshment that is great.
If it's early or it's late,
It's Orange Crush,
Orange Crush, the drink that's extra good.
fresh fruit flavor.
That's for me, it tastes better.
Naturally,
Orange Crush,
get some right away.
Visit our refreshment stand right away for delicious Orange Crush and all kinds of good things to eat.
All right. Getting ready to jump into our next topic, which is Johnny Somali. Now, for those that are not in the know of how or who he is or what he does, the best synopsis I can give you is, you know, the internet has a lot of pros and cons. It's got a lot of great things about technology, and there's obviously also some very bad things about technology and the world of content creation, trolling, baiting, you know, the things that get said, cyber stalking, but then, you know, good things for how you meet people. You group up and go find real friends in the real world who you met online, which is something I've done over the years. But guys like Johnny Somali, and if, you know, he and guys like Jack Doherty, so they kind of are similar. These are guys that purposely go out as streamers and provoke and antagonize just people in general. Doherty was somebody who was very young when he started streaming himself, picking fights with people and then getting out of it because he had two big ass bodyguards that would step in if someone tried to harm him. He recently had an incident where he was driving his McLaren, which, again, this kid is so fucking irresponsible. It's not even funny, but he was speeding in a rainstorm and wiped out and hit a guardrail, smashed the fuck out of the McLaren. His friend who was with him had a bloody forehead, but the only thing that Jack could think of was, let's get to streaming and let's talk about this. Like, he's so disconnected from the real world. Like, it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But Somali works in a similar manner. So Somali, he's an American live streamer who started out on Twitch and then eventually got banned because he's a very provocative guy who goes out and trolls everybody. He does exactly what I just described. Right now he's on Kick and Rumble, and they're a little bit more lenient on this kind of shit. But he goes and he tours like Asian countries, and then he provokes them in different ways, whether it's throwing food, in a place and being disrespectful, or he'll, like, if they have landmarks, he will do things that are disrespecting to the landmarks, or in some cases he was playing like the Japanese theme or something for North Korea or South Korea, and provoking them because like they don't like each other that much. So it's like he trolls people, and he tries to call it always as good fun, but he oftentimes will get arrested and then let go because the offenses are so minor most of the time. But he's in really big trouble now because of some of the things he's done, and this is one of these cases where you can say where you fuck around and find out. And we're going to watch a video from Cap Curly here. I haven't watched it yet, but the possibility of him serving like a lengthy jail sentence in Korea is pretty strong now. I don't think it's going to happen because them wanting to do this for any length of time, like I would say, if you're going to do it for a couple of years just to kind of teach him a lesson. But the word is he could face up to 70 years for somebody. Like he went on a subway in Korea and like start yelling out bomb or something. He just does shit that's so dumb that he needs to be taken off stream. He needs to be taught a lesson in one way or another. And I'm usually not one to care about freedom of speech and just, goofing off occasionally. But when you make a career and get paid to do the shit that you do that's so disrespectful, like of other cultures, like it just kind of rubs me the wrong way. And it's like, this kid he's 24, but he's been given a pass every single time. So I'm kind of hoping he gets punished harshly. 7 years is a bit excessive, but at the same time, I really wouldn't feel bad for him. I just, this is one of these things where, like, when you think about Brittany Griner, the WNBA player who got detained in Russia because she had paraphernalia or, weed or whatever it was. And, you go into a country and you're not recognizing that you're doing something illegal. You are subject to the penalties that country has. And, if Somali went to some other country that, like, if he tried to steal something as a prank and their punishment is to cut your fucking hand off, well, who's going to blame the country? Because that's what their rules are. You don't go and do these things. Some places, like I think NECA was telling me when she was visiting Taiwan or places like that, where she couldn't vape there because it's an arrestable offense. She can't take her vape with her. So, or if they have a certain kind of culture thing going on, she can't go there. And sure, she would have to cover up everything, because they don't allow that. So those are arrestable offenses when you go into a country. So you have to be cognizant of the rules and laws that these countries have. And then when you purposely go and try to offend those people there, it just makes you look like a fucking idiot and like an asshole. And so, people say, well, it's not against the law to be an asshole. Well, apparently it is in certain countries. So, like, what you get away with in America is one thing, but overseas, is a whole different ballgame. And Somalia has been all over the place, like Israel and everything else, doing things that would get him beaten up. There'd been people that chased him down, found out where he was in Korea, and beat his ass. It'll be lucky if this guy never gets killed for shit that he's doing. Like, you don't really want to endorse that, but you're like basically poking the proverbial bear, and to the point where one day that could backfire heavily in your face. But let's check out the video, and we're going to find out a little bit more information on what the story is in Korea. But I know he's been detained, his passport's been taken, and before I heard he maybe could serve like 5 years in prison, but now it's like 70 because I guess more and more offenses are coming in. So because this jackass records everything he does, so all the evidence is fucking there.
Kim Jong-un nuked this. I just don't want to be here when Kim Jong-un press that red button. They nuked this, so shit turned to fall out of Vegas. No, please, Kim Jong-un, press that button. Press.
It seems that Somali is stirring up tensions by provoking North Korea and its leader, Kim Jong-un, against South Korea. Remarkably, he's even gone so far as to advise Kim Jong-un to destroy Korea by pressing a mysterious red button. While it's unclear exactly which red button Somali is referring to, the implication is undoubtedly alarming and adds a dramatic edge to the already fraught relationship between these nations. However, a new video is currently making rounds on the internet featuring a Korean lawyer who explains the potential legal repercussions Johnny Somali could face for his recent actions. The lawyer sheds light on how his provocations and statements could lead to even more trouble, adding another layer of complexity to the situation.
What's your opinion on all the stuff that is happening with Johnny Somali in Korea? Yeah, once he finished with the police investigation, he will be deported, and what he did was horrible. Yeah, like of course, his each actions and each videos that he took and each of his contents are full of crimes. Of course, yeah, literally, he will be punished for misdemeanor, defamation, sexual harassment, insults, assault cases.
The lawyer elaborates that Johnny Somali's actions in Korea could lead to serious consequences under the law. However, there's also a strong possibility that he might be deported back to the USA. If deportation occurs, it would not only be a significant embarrassment for South Korea, but could also set a dangerous precedent. Such an outcome might inadvertently encourage others like Johnny Somali to engage in similar disruptive behavior in Korea and potentially in other parts of the world in the future.
Of course, he was also a victim of many assault cases, but at the same time, he will face many prosecutions in Korea.
In discussing the legal implications, the lawyer highlights that Johnny Somali has faced numerous physical attacks during his time in Korea, and he has reportedly filed lawsuits against those who assaulted him.
I know there was one moment where he had gotten assaulted and arrested at the same time, so they put him in jail for the night. And then the next day he got out, and there was guys waiting for him, and they assaulted him again. So then he just waited for him to get out of jail for the evening and went back and hit him again. Yeah, so it's the first I've heard that he's trying to like press lawsuits against the people that assaulted him, because like I don't even know if he knows who they actually are, but when you piss off that many people, like sometimes he'll walk down the streets talking shit to people and harassing people, and then when they start grouping up on him, he starts like, hey, yeah. He tries to get out of it, and he's just a dumbass.
However, what Johnny seems to fail to grasp is the stark difference between the legal systems in the USA and Asia. In the United States, filing lawsuits, even over relatively minor grievances, is a common practice, and the judicial system is structured to entertain such cases.
Press them on my street.
Trust me.
Yeah, we're gonna have a great night.
Go to Johnny's street, we're gonna have a good time. Whoa! What the fuck is your problem? Guys. What the fuck is your... No, hell no.
Oh, no.
Asia, on the other hand, operates under a vastly different legal and cultural framework. Here, the threshold for what constitutes a serious legal matter is significantly higher, and the systems are less inclined to indulge in cases that lack substantial merit. The irony of Johnny's situation...
Yeah, see, this case right here, he was in a place eating some noodles, which he started pouring on the table, and then when the store person came and said, hey, quit doing that and leave the establishment, he started throwing the noodles at people outside, and the guy is just a giant asshole. And so, like, again, you can argue being an asshole is not against the law, but when you are basically invading other people's spaces, or you're doing things that could be considered assault, like by throwing noodles on people and shit like that, like you're inviting people to interact with you in a negative way. So when he's getting his ass beat, no one feels bad for him. Like, it's just not something that, we care about that much. And it's unfortunate that he's been getting away with this shit for so long. Like, it's, people are just not feeling bad for the guy. And I really hope that whatever justice Korea puts on him is, warranted.
Is that if the legal system in Korea were as stringent and thorough as he might expect, his repeated provocations, offensive behavior, and controversial statements would likely have landed him behind bars long ago. His actions have pushed the boundaries of acceptable conduct in Korea, yet he continues to misunderstand the cultural and legal nuances of the region, creating friction not just with individuals but with the broader society. In this video, Johnny Somali and his friends, Gino and Hanku, are seen arrogantly bragging about their supposed power to punish an individual and impose extreme consequences on him. However, the situation takes a humorous turn when both Gino and Hanku flee the scene, abandoning Johnny to face the fallout alone. Their so-called power quickly crumbles, leaving Johnny as the only one left to deal with the repercussions of their actions. Now he stands as the sole person likely to face prosecution, with the potential of serving up to 29 years in prison, a grim outcome for someone who once boasted so confidently.
You have any statement for him? If he's watching, they're gonna send a clip to this motherfucker. I'm pretty sure the motherfucker is scared of him. He knows that we didn't know we had a Korean person with us, that we're gonna go to the police station and go report him, and they got CCTV and we have video.
I'm also an American, bro.
So what statement do you want to have to this guy?
Huh?
You want to say anything to the dude that attacked us?
While I'm here, if them motherfucker attacks you, then I'm gonna take them off.
Bro, where are you now? People are actively searching for you, yet here you are, still talking about taking that guy down. If you're truly as powerful as you claim to be, then why are you hiding like a coward? Your actions don't match your words, and it's clear that all your bravado was nothing more than empty talk.
There we go. So yes,
I'm actually an amateur MMA fighter.
So we have fully pressed charges on the motherfucker.
I actually know the law too.
Investigation has started. They got CCTV footage. They got all the evidence, all the photos, all the videos we sent. So yeah, this nigga fucked. And thank you for the money, bro. So I gotta say thank you for the money.
With friends like Gino and Hanku who needs enemies, these so-called friends are the type who encourage reckless behavior, push you into committing serious mistakes, even crimes, only to vanish the moment things get dangerous. They leave you to shoulder all the consequences, not just for your own actions, but for theirs as well. Johnny Somali now finds himself in exactly this position, abandoned, alone, and bearing the full weight of the fallout. Meanwhile,
but he's also the one that instigates a lot of things. Like, I think it's kind of sad to sit there and say, well, these other guys are more responsible than him. Yeah, they play a part, but like, it's not like, Johnny's like all innocent in this shit. Like, he has a huge hand in a lot of this stuff, and so it's pretty ridiculous to try to pin it all on the other guys and not Johnny himself, because Johnny makes a lot of money via his streams. Now, granted, due to all his issues right now, when he's been kicked off of Kick, I think, for some of this shit, so he's losing money that way, but rightfully so. Like, nobody wants this train wreck of a person to be attached to them in any way.
Korean lawyer delves deeper into the ramifications of Johnny's actions, pointing out that provoking North Korea adds an entirely new layer of trouble to his already dire situation. Let's revisit what the lawyer had to say about the consequences of messing with a nation as unpredictable as North Korea.
In fine, of course. Anyway, yeah, he will face many punishment, many guilty sentences in Korea, and anyway, yeah, he will be deported. His visa will be cancelled. But the real problem is that his misbehavior it led to a lot of prejudice and biased views to American or black Americans, or sometimes because of his naming, that he named himself Somali, so many Somali people.
I completely agree, and I'm sure many of you watching feel the same way. The people who have suffered the most due to Johnny Somali's actions are undoubtedly black individuals, particularly black Americans and Somalians. His behavior has perpetuated harmful stereotypes, unfairly tarnishing the reputation of these communities. Now, anyone from these backgrounds visiting certain countries might face unjust discrimination or hostility simply because of the negative image Johnny Somali has created.
This guy is destroying the reputation of black people here in Asia. It's sad because I know quite a lot of black people who are highly intelligent.
Well, he's destroying the reputation of people and black people in general, just even from America. I mean, when you visit these countries and you behave in this manner, they look at Americans like, is this what America's about? Is this kind of asshole? Like, this is what we're to expect? And it's just a shitty thing, man. Like, and the fact that this guy has followers who support him are just even equally as dumb. Like, it's such a shame, dude. Like, horrible ridiculousness that anyone would support this guy going around and purposely hurting people and antagonizing them and fucking like disrespecting them in that way. Like, it's just ridiculous. He's not a comedian. He's not funny. He's just an asshole.
Intelligent. We're doing so many great work behind the scene, really.
So that kind of biased view and prejudice, that's what harms the society. So it's a horrible crime, not because he just committed a crime. The impact of his actions by harassing Korean people and Korean history and many Asian histories and Asian cultures, what he did in many Asian countries, that will leave a long legacy, negative legacy, which will hurt a lot of people and which will lead to many prejudiced views to foreigners in those areas.
As the lawyer pointed out, Johnny Somali's reckless actions have not only endangered his own life, but are now putting others at risk as well. In his recent videos, he has been seen making provocative comments about North Korea, fully aware that such mentions can attract more views. This has prompted many to suggest that the South Korean government should send Johnny Somali to North Korea. However, such a move could result in a dangerously unpredictable situation for South Korea. South Korea's failure to take decisive action against Johnny, coupled with his ongoing provocations involving North Korea while residing on South Korean soil, could have serious repercussions. North Korea might misinterpret his antics as propaganda orchestrated by South Korea, leveraging an American like Johnny Somali to provoke them intentionally. This misperception could escalate tensions between the two nations, further destabilizing an already fragile relationship and potentially sparking a diplomatic crisis.
Somali faces more jail time as he plays North Korean propaganda in South Korea.
There's something called a National Security Act in Korea, and it is a crime to promote,
legal mindset,
propagate, or otherwise disseminate North Korean propaganda, etc. in South Korea.
This situation poses a significant danger to South Korea, as Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea, is notoriously unyielding and unpredictable, rarely heeding advice or pressure from the international community. Any provocative act by Johnny Somali while he remains in South Korea could escalate tensions and potentially provoke Kim Jong-un into taking a retaliatory action. Such a response might create serious consequences for South Korea, adding fuel to an already volatile relationship between the two nations and jeopardizing regional stability.
Look, if he was doing this as a joke once, I would say that they're probably not going to do anything about it, right? The problem is he has repeatedly done this. Not just once, but multiple times. He played North Korean propaganda on the metro, on the bus, at Lotte World, various places. He's gone all around making North Korean statements, etc.
And because he is doing this over and over, the judge maybe increases jail time?
So a judge looking at him doing this maliciously and repeatedly could say, yeah, no, we're actually going to charge him with that. And we're going to ding him on that one too, because he's done this over and over and over again.
And because Johnny Somali continues to engage in these reckless actions over and over again, there's a real possibility that the judge may decide to increase his jail time. His repeated provocations, especially in such a sensitive context, could be seen as a pattern of behavior that warrants harsher punishment. This could lead to even more severe legal consequences, further complicating his already dire situation.
If you like North Korea so much, go there. Go there, please. Go to North Korea, please. Please, the South Koreans, you obviously don't like the South Koreans, okay? You know, they don't like you, you don't like them. So go to North Korea. I mean, it's just a stone's throw away. Go to North Korea. Maybe they will like you. Maybe you'll like them. Spoiler alert, probably won't.
And because Johnny Somali continues to engage in these reckless actions over and over again, there's a real possibility.
See this. Johnny says this a lot. So he says, you know, I made a mistake. You know, in life, people make mistakes and they need to own up. So I apologize. But what ends up happening is he does this a lot where he'll apologize to get out of that trouble in that immediate moment. But then he'll make a video like a day or two later saying, psych, I got away with it, yada, yada, yada. I'm so cool. Yeah, I can't be touched, man. I'm American. I'm Johnny Somali. Nobody can hurt me. And so when these videos get forwarded to South Korea authorities, they're like, oh, really? Well, we'll make sure that you do are held accountable. You aren't immune to getting in trouble. So, he does this a lot where he does pull this fake ass apology shit, and it's like, again, I don't feel sorry if he gets thrown in prison for a few years. Like, I can't. Like, it's just at some point you have to teach the kid a lesson, like, and say, there's consequences for this shit, brother. Here it is.
That the judge may decide to increase his jail time. His repeated provocations, especially in such a sensitive context, could be seen as a pattern of behavior that warrants harsher punishment. This could lead to even more severe legal consequences, further complicating his already dire situation. Johnny Somali's activities frequently spark discussions about propaganda, as his content often involves offensive stunts that he labels as comedy or entertainment. However, these actions go beyond harmless humor, as they intentionally provoke and stir controversy. By masking harmful behavior as jokes or pranks, Johnny not only misleads his audience, but also amplifies the potential for real-world consequences, blurring the line between entertainment and dangerous provocation.
I'm gonna tell you something, and you better listen up real well. Karma comes in all sorts of shapes and sizes, and Karma is one ruthless, cold-hearted bitch with a 14-inch strap-on.
I love China. I would never disrespect China the way I disrespected Korea and Japan.
Johnny Somali is fully aware that his actions are disrespecting both Korea and Japan. Despite this, he chose to issue a fake public apology, likely in an attempt to cover up his provocative behavior and calm the growing backlash. However, the insincerity of his apology has been evident to many, as it does little to address the harm caused by his actions. It seems that his primary concern is mitigating the consequences of his actions, rather than genuinely acknowledging the disrespect he has shown to these nations.
I really did not mean to hurt your guys' pride this much. You guys are a good people. You guys are great people. I've had a great experience with a lot of the South Korean people, and it was not my intention to really hurt you guys, and I hope you guys can accept my apology. And I'm a young person.
This dude is such a liar.
In his apology, which was widely perceived as insincere.
No way I believe that he accidentally did this to multiple different comfort lady statues without knowing the meaning of it. He knew exactly what he was doing.
Johnny Somali claimed that he never intended to disrespect Korean culture or history. However,
the thing is, man, like, look what he's doing, right? There's nothing in my DNA, whether I was 18, 25, 30, 54, nothing in my DNA would sit there and tell me if I'm in a visiting country and I see this, irregardless if I know what that represents or not, that I would feel like I need to do some twerking in front of it. Not a fucking thing would tell me that that's what I need to do in a visiting country. You have to be the biggest fucking idiot to think that this is okay no matter where you go. Someone please tell me I'm wrong, because there's no way I'm wrong. You just have to be the biggest fucking idiot to think that this is okay regardless. It could have been just a fucking pillar of sorts or a memorial, and him doing anything like this would not be accepted at all. Like, I have no idea. They say it's a comfort statue. I didn't even know that. And like, but there's nothing that would tell me, shit, man, I need to go and do a groove on this. Like, maybe do pelvic thrust on the face. Like, who would do that stupid shit? You're a fucking idiot with no respect for anybody. Again, I don't endorse this guy getting harmed, but dude, if he disappeared tomorrow and they found his body in some shallow grave, like I wouldn't feel bad. Like, you fuck around and find out, dude. You're lucky if you go to prison. Like, you could end up fucking getting killed by somebody that takes it far more serious than anyone else. Like, I wouldn't feel bad at all. Like, it's just retarded. Like, the idea you think this is okay, no matter if you're a follower, the guy filming, or him himself, you're a fucking moron.
Many saw this statement as a mere attempt to deflect the backlash and avoid further trouble. His actions, which have caused significant offense, contradicted his words, leading many to view the apology as nothing more than a PR move rather than a genuine expression of remorse.
I've done, and I really did not mean, and I hope you guys can accept my apology. And I'm a young person, so I apologize, you guys, and I will no longer. I hope that I can live in peace here in South Korea, and we could get past the situation and use it as a learning situation, because a lot of people learned about this statue from this situation, bad or good. A lot of people from all over the world found out.
Though Johnny Somali acknowledged that he didn't fully understand the significance of the statue in question, this admission seemed to do little to soften the impact of his actions. His lack of awareness regarding such important cultural symbols only highlighted his disregard for the history and values of the country he was offending. This further fueled criticism, as many felt that his ignorance was no excuse for his behavior, especially when it came to something so deeply meaningful to the people of Korea.
This is one of the most insincere, shitty apologies I have ever seen. So let me get this straight. After everything that has taken place, after everything that you have done, you want to chalk all of this up as a learning experience for others? Get the fuck out of here with that shit.
Today, we're going to prove that Johnny Somali was fully aware of the significance and historical weight of the statue before engaging in his actions.
He's not sorry. He's sorry that he was caught and might actually have to deal with some serious consequences here.
Despite his claims of ignorance, everything he did was done with a complete understanding of the symbolism behind the statue and the deep respect it holds for the victims of the past. His actions were intentional, not born out of a lack.
The funny thing is that I can't remember his name offhand. He's another content creator on YouTube, but he knows all these different languages. Like, he studies different languages across the world, and he knows quite a few of them. Like, it's really crazy. He's really good in Chinese, but he's learned some ancient, like, Indian, Native American languages, and just, he knows Korea, he knows French, he knows all. It's really quite mind-blowing. He's done it all via the web. Like, it's not like he went to school for all this. He just learned online how to learn these languages. And so, like, he goes around the world, tries their food and their culture, gets to know people, and then he kind of surprises them when he starts speaking their native tongue, and they get really happy because you have this American who took the time to learn all these languages and can speak it fluently, and sometimes better than they do. They admit this. So I look at something like that and I say, wow, that's a really cool thing. This guy appreciates other cultures, and he goes out of his way to appreciate the people that he's learned their languages and how they live and their food and stuff. And it's really a feel-good moment. Then you got fucktards like this who purposely go out of their way to harm people, to disrespect them, doesn't take any initiative to learn anything about the cultures. Like, it's frustrating for me as an older person because I don't have the opportunity right now to go and visit some of these countries that I really want to go to Japan. I really want to go to Germany. I really want to go to Europe, Bahamas and stuff like that. I haven't had the opportunity to do it money wise and so on. But when you have that luxury, even if you've worked hard enough to get to that point and then you waste it doing dumb shit like this, it just makes me mad. I'm like, so much is wasted here. The opportunity that you have to go and experience these other cultures, and yet this is how you want to do it. This is how you want to fucking American or have other cultures see Americans as this. And it's fucking embarrassing, and it's a shame
lack of knowledge, but rather a deliberate choice to disrespect something sacred. Now, let's take a look at his apology video and see how he tries to explain his actions.
I'm with Hanshi. He wants to help me. He wants to help me with my apology to the people of Japan. He's an ex-Yakuza member. And I want to make a sincere apology. I love Japan, and I really want to bring love, you know what I mean? I don't want no more war. Let's make peace, everybody. This is for CX. This is for Paul Dinino, Ice Poseidon in Japan. Gomen nasai. Gomen nasai.
Johnny Somali is fully aware that his actions are disrespecting both Korea and Japan. Despite this, he chose to issue a fake public apology.
No, you're not. You're a nobody. You came over here, you insulted the people, and you're not taking responsibility for it.
Okay.
Right?
Don't tell me you are going to drop atomic bomb on Japan. Okay? Okay. The Japanese don't think you are good. Okay. I apologize to the Japanese.
Back then, Johnny Somali's like-to-dislike ratio was completely in the negative for some reason. Even back in the early stages of social media, before he would be an international menace, people just clicked on his streams and went, yeah, f this guy. I don't really know why.
Likely in an attempt to cover up his provocative behavior and calm the growing backlash. However, the insincerity of his apology has been evident to many, as it does little to address the harm caused by his actions. It seems that his primary concern is mitigating the consequences of his actions, rather than genuinely acknowledging the disrespect he has shown to these nations.
I want to apologize to the Korean people. I was not aware of the significance of the statue. I was trying to get, you know what I mean, it was just entertainment for my audience. We're from America. We really don't know much about the comfort woman or much about the statue, where we're from. So when I saw this statue, I came upon it on my stream. At first, I really didn't even know what it was. So now after I see the reaction from the Korean people, I see that it really hurt you guys.
Didn't know what it was, but rather than take the time to learn what it meant and how it applied to, I mean, clearly it's out in the open like that, and it has writing and has a platform and everything. And the first thing you thought is, I'm going to twerk on this fucking thing, or I'm going to, you know, make some weird, nasty gestures at it as if it's some sort of toy that I'm there to play with. Like, you're an idiot, just an idiot. But you can't really use that as an excuse. Like, he's in his 20s. He's not. He's been doing this a while. So he does it purposely. He's a fucking, you know, an internet troll, as he self-proclaims to be. So it's not like he's. This is all just fake. It's like it's a persona, and he just tries to do this to get out of trouble until he can no longer get out of the trouble.
However, critics quickly pointed out that Johnny Somali's tone and delivery in the apology video seemed more focused on damage control than any genuine sense of remorse.
Yo, we here at the statue. This shit pissed the Koreans off so much. Yo, chat, I brought the baby oil to this. Chat GPT, don't get me wrong. I'm here to give a speech. Oil her up. There's a different one. I'm going to put baby oil on a different one. I'll say, let me give my speech. We're here to confront an ugly, shameful truth that has been denied and ignored for far too long. I'm talking about the Korean comfort women. The thousands of women who were forced into...
His words lacked sincerity, and many felt that he was more concerned with protecting his reputation and avoiding further consequences rather than truly acknowledging the hurt he caused. The apology appeared rehearsed, as if he were simply going through the motions to placate those who were offended, rather than offering a heartfelt apology for his actions. Many viewed Johnny Somali's apology as a strategic move aimed at lessening potential legal repercussions, rather than a sincere admission of wrongdoing. The timing and tone of the apology suggested that he was more concerned with mitigating the fallout from his actions than genuinely acknowledging the offense he caused. This led to widespread skepticism, with many feeling that the apology was nothing more than a calculated attempt to avoid further consequences, rather than a true expression of remorse.
Hold on. Japan hates. I don't know if it's disrespect to sit here.
I stand with the Korean people. Bring it closer to me. Come closer. I stand with the Korean people. I love Korea. And everything that I did in Japan was for the Korean and the Chinese people. Let's go. Let's get out of here. They're gonna clip that. Oh my god. Oh my god. They didn't like this at all.
Johnny Somali has a long history of controversial behavior, and his past actions, such as provoking locals and making disrespectful comments in various countries, have only fueled skepticism around any apologies he offers. Given his track record of stirring up trouble and then issuing half-hearted apologies, it's difficult for many to take his latest apology seriously. His pattern of behavior suggests that his apologies are often more about saving face than acknowledging the harm he has caused, leading many to question whether he truly understands the impact of his actions.
And a local woman comes and explains the significance of the statue.
Oh, yeah. Okay, explain what's going on. No, sit here. I don't know.
It's not just art.
I know it's art. I did not know.
He does know. He's just a fucking asshole.
Oh. I misunderstood. Sorry. Thank you.
If you are cosmic, you will be jailed. Okay?
Really?
But we didn't, because
Thank you.
I was trying to talk to you.
And after all of this, it's proved that he just lied about that. He doesn't know about the significance of the statue. Let's know why he lied about it.
I love China. I would never disrespect China the way I disrespected Korea and Japan. China is the only, pretty much, let me be honest, Japanese are Chinese.
So he definitely knew what it was, and his whole apology was just a massive lie because he's scared about going to...
So yeah, there you have it. I mean, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, it didn't really bring much into the idea of how much time he might serve or whatever, but if I have time down the road and more information comes out, I'll update you on like what the story and how that plays out. But I can't feel sorry for this guy. Like, I hope that they really hit him hard. 70 years might be excessive for this kind of shit, but again, you go into another country, they have their own laws, and so like if you get 70 years for something like that in their homeland, it's your fault, man. You did it, and you decided to record it all, which is even worse. So the evidence is there. They have all the evidence they need to use it against you in their court system. So have fun with that, brother. As for the rest of you, enjoy the rest of your week, and I will see you later on the Middletown Radio podcast. First week of December, I will not have any content out because Neko and I are in the process of being moving, and so we're getting our new place. We're already got plans to be out of here by the 9th or 10th, and then setting up. So I'm hoping I'll be set back up before the end of the around the 12th or 13th when I plan on doing more content. But if I can't, I'll let you guys know, and I'll have to readjust some things if we can't quite get back up to snuff, because now we're kind of worrying about whether or not what kind of internet access we're going to have and the service provider and stuff like that. So it wasn't quite what I thought was out there, but we'll see how it goes, and hopefully it's okay. But yeah, other than that, we'll talk at you later. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see you later. Have a good one.